Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jed, and today we are in the Philosophical Midwifery book. We're in chapter 2, and we are in section 5 of the list of things that we have to understand about the pathologos. And that section is blame and anger. Now, this is a big one because we are all angry. People get angry all the time. Now, if you've been following along with this channel for a while, maybe you've recognized certain key moments in which people get angry. This is important. One of the big... it's important because in philosophy we are learning to understand and know ourselves. Or another way of saying that, climbing the ladder of the logos. Developing an understanding itself of the logos, and using that in our lives to become better, to become happier, to become more just, and in midwifery to remove our problems, which means we have to surface those problems or the things that get in the way of that development. In other words, as we climb the ladder, there are blocks that come up. And these usually manifest as, well, not usually, but they can manifest as anger. So we can recognize that anger can come up when we are when we experience an event that reflects our block. In other words, what we saw last time, the insult against the self, that caused our pathologos. When someone reflects that kind of insult towards us, we can get angry at it. It triggers us. But also, you might recognize, if you've been in this game, that people tend to get angry when you do very well, when you are in excellence, when you are making progress, when you share the significance of understanding. Then human beings seem to get pissed at that. How dare you suggest that you can understand problems? How dare you suggest there can be a better way? How dare you suggest you can understand problems, understand the meaning of life? How dare you suggest that you can solve the problems that we are facing in our current society? Which seems absurd. Why would you get angry at the very things that benefit you and everyone? That's a puzzle that we have. So whether it's anger, so another way of representing that is the logos. The logos can trigger people's anger. The better you can share in the logos, the better you can participate in the logos. Some people can get triggered by that. In a similar way, people who reflect that specific block of your own can anger you. If you were told that you were too stupid growing up, someone who does that to you might trigger your anger. But also we know in philosophy that we are, as we learn, we are developing to see reality, self and reality the way it is, which means we are removing interpretations. The false interpretations that we see through. In other words, we are projecting. We project all the time. We project the sorts of things that can make us angry. Now, this is very easy to see with what we call right-wingers or conservatives. It's the same principle. They are manipulated very, very easily because they are because the grift with right-wingers is to make people unable to relate to reality so they can be more easily manipulated. by getting them to project onto the world all of their fears and insecurities and then get angry at it. So everything is woke. I can't say anything anymore. Oh, you can't say Merry Christmas anymore. Oh, everything is bad. These are all distractions, of course, because simply put, we should be looking at one question: who has all the money? That's it. That's it. Who has all the money? Oh, these billionaires have all the money? Oh, that's bad. Let's fix that. That's it. That's the first step to becoming rational in politics. Very, very simple. Then you could take the next step and say, well, okay, by the way, those people with the money, how do they use it? And that's midwifery. They're simply using that money and power that they have extracted from, stolen, exploited through exploitation, stolen from everybody else to play out their pathologos with impunity. That's it. But the real question is, well, who has all the money, and how can we get it back so we can all share it? That's it. But the right-wing grift is to create boogeymen, so they're constantly projecting onto reality problems that don't exist and then get angry at them. They're always angry. So, we get angry at people who are doing well, the logos. This can be other people or ourselves. We get angry at those who reflect our own insult. And we can get angry at everything, which makes us more easily to be easily exploited, manipulated, and abused if we project onto reality what isn't there, which is mainstream media and the right-wing grift to get people constantly angry at nothing, to prevent unification within rationality and understanding. That's it. And the first question that you have when you are unified with rationality is, hey, how come they have all the money and we have none of the money? That's it. That's it. Very simple. Then the next question is, well, okay, what's the cause of, what was the ignorance that allowed us to accept that abuse to begin with, so we can make sure that doesn't happen again? And now that we are all comfortable, we can live comfortably with wealth equality, then let's pursue the logos. Very, very simple if you say it. So the next part of this is blame. That's anger. Anger is a big issue. Blame. Well, this is also very key for us in philosophy, because we recognize that the essence of philosophy and midwifery is understanding causes. So if the problems that we have are caused by beliefs, we need to, and beliefs are in essence just believing an image or believing something somebody says to you. You don't understand. In other words, you can't make the causal connections for yourself. This thing causes this thing causes this thing. That's involved in understanding. And also, in order to identify the false beliefs that limit us, we have to trace our problems back to the root cause of our problems. The false belief, the pathologos we're carrying. So we do need to kind of blame something. There is a cause. If your toaster isn't working, there should be something that you can understand that's causing the toaster not to work. What's to blame for your toaster not working? Oh, this wire is disconnected, or my kid dropped a Matchbox car into the toaster and it's short-circuiting. There'll be a cause or a kind of blame. So there is, and of course that's philosophy as well. Understanding the cause of self and reality. Why are you here? What are the causes? And of course we can, as we move forward in philosophy, we can recognize there are different kinds of causes, like the and we can understand that these causes can be understood within the dialectic, the material cause, the efficient cause, and so on and so on. Like, for example, anyway, it's a whole different conversation in the type of causes. But ultimately, we want to go to the first cause, which is also called the final cause, because everything emanates from this first cause, but in seeking to understand, we want to go back to it. So it's also the final cause, to recognize the cause of everything, the self. So first and final cause. It's all about causes. Whether we're understanding problems, or whether we're understanding self, or whether we're reaching our destiny, it's causes. So there is a kind of, and if you recognize that this cause is causing a problem, well, is that blame? Or is blame different? Who's to blame? So, two big issues, really, really big issues. Anger, which gets in the way of our development, allows us to be manipulated and causes us to act unjustly, or to misdirect our anger because we're angry at someone reflecting, thumbs up, reflecting our pathologos rather than addressing the cause of our pathologos. Hey, if some joker comes by and calls you a fathead, and that's a reflection of what happened to you growing up, you might get very, very angry at them. When really, your anger should be directed at, well, the original insult, the original pathologos. So, anger is a big deal, understanding causes is a big deal, and we want to be able to differentiate understanding causes from blame, and what's the significance. So, huge, really, really exciting section of the text we're in right now. Let's jump in. Okie-dokie. Blame and anger. Fifth, can parents be blamed for the pathologos? That's our question. Causes? Is it blame? Is causes the same as blame? So this is a big question, so let's highlight this. There we go. Can parents be blamed for the pathologos? Are they responsible for all this duplicity? Remember all of the levels of lying, acting, duplicity involved in setting the conditions for the transfer scene and also maintaining it, the collective agreement not to address it, and so on and so on. Are they responsible for all this duplicity? Before we can explore this issue in terms of philosophical midwifery, let's review a few things. What is blaming? That's the question we asked. Okay, let's do that. And then do this. There we go. What is blaming? Whether we confront others to condemn them for any reason, whenever we confront others to condemn them for any reason, we are trying to convince them that they are primarily responsible for some bad state of affairs. Calling one evil, bad, or having a flawed nature is another way to blame others. That's a big one. So we, in philosophy, or simply being rational, is understanding the cause of things. One way to distract from understanding the cause is to just vilify someone. The guy who shot the American healthcare CEO, oh, he's just a villain. Whereas Kyle Rittenhouse, who shot a black person because he wanted to, because he's racist. That's not a villain. He's a hero. So that's a very obvious example, which is prevalent in the news at the time of the recording. Whenever a war is started, we call the people we want to murder innately evil, right? The Palestinians are being called by the Israeli, called savages, unhuman, innately evil. And of course, it's no surprise that religions which are bound by belief vilify people who are not of that same kind of pathologos, that kind of clan mentality. They are not chosen. And there are various different words. They are evil, they are heathen, they are heretics, and so on and so on. And justification for many, many different wars, genocides, abuse, so on and so on and so on. But all of this is a way of saying that their nature is bad, instead of understanding the cause of problems, which is to be rational, which is the logos. So we need to recognize when we do that, don't be precious about it. Oh, how dare you say it's bad to call somebody a heretic? I really believe it. Who gives a shit? Doesn't matter what you believe, what matters is the truth. You can believe all sorts of racist crap or genocidal crap. It doesn't make it true. We're interested in truth. That's being mature. That's being rational. Okay? But also recognizing it's not a blame game. It's an understanding. Why are you so keen to call Palestinian savage? Why are you so keen to call African Americans monkeys so you can enslave them and exploit them for slave labor? Why? What's the cause? What's the cause for your inhumanity and ignorance? Okay, so got two things on the table. Condemning them, that they are primarily responsible for some bad state of affairs, which is interesting because can't that be the case? When blaming is successful, the blamed experiences a state of sense of their own worthlessness. And when we repeatedly use errors and mistakes, as supporting evidence in condemning, that is called intimidation. Interesting. So, yeah, that's interesting. Super significant since we are on the quest to discover the true nature of the self, which is what we were calling the first and final cause, so it can't be worthless. Interesting. Insecure people in positions of power often defend their right to intimidate their subordinates because they claim they need to motivate them perform their tasks. Right, people who justify any sort of oppression and slavery. We need to abuse you because otherwise you're too lazy. We need capitalism. We need to abuse you, otherwise the system wouldn't work, or because you'd be too lazy to do anything good. You need to be a slave to us. Same crap. However, when adults experience intimidation, they do not thereby gain pathologos because they have sufficient experience to recognize these strategies for what they are. So when we're adults, we recognize it's bollocks. So when we're adults, we realize we're not crap and stupid. This is just tools of oppression to make us experience intimidation. Okay. Sufficient evidence to recognize these strategies for what they are. The issue The issue of blame is a central issue in philosophical midwifery. It is often raised in midwifery talks, and with its solution, a maturity is gained. So it's a central issue, and it makes sense why it's a central issue. Why is that not that color? This one. No? There we go. Makes sense because we do want to understand the cause of problems. But when we find its solution, a maturity is gained. So let's keep that wondering alive, and hopefully we will gain a maturity where we understand the difference between understanding causes and blame. The truth is that we are responsible. We are responsible for our own pathologos. We formed the judgments. We made the conclusion. But there is no blame. Blaming others is an empty charge. But because we frame the pathologos ourselves. Equally, blaming ourselves is pointless because at the time we didn't even know we concluded as we did. So this is interesting. He hasn't quite yet made that distinction between understanding causes and the word blame. We do recognize that one kind of blame is saying that we are bad in nature, original sin, to just, again, it's the same thing, any kind of oppression, collective evil, you could say, oppression and subjugation or cult, or starts with this. So if you want to start a church which has a lot of power and wealth that they extract from people, power over people, you start by saying, you are not as good as us, we are better because you have original sin. Capitalism, you deserve to be enslaved by us because you are selfish, you need capitalism. You are innately criminals, you need the prison system. You are innately lazy, you need to be enslaved in wage slavery. You are etc, etc. You are savages, you need to be genocided. Same thing. It starts with identifying or and continuing to support that with false evidence as intimidation. But it's to distract from the actual cause of problems by saying, by blaming individuals' innate nature. And if you've ever talked to anyone who justifies these sorts of oppressions, they will, whether they are the people who are from rich families or people who are the oppressors, Elon Musk's, yes, I deserve to have all of the wealth because I'm better, because these people are too stupid. They need me to manage them. Yes, they are dumb, I am good, therefore I deserve the money. Or people who are bootlickers, people who are the ones being oppressed, and they say, oh no, we need capitalism because I'm really bad, I'm really lazy. I'm a bad boy, I need to be enslaved by capitalism. All hail Elon Musk, all hail the very, very rich sociopaths. Always the same game. But there is another element, trying to convince someone that they are primarily responsible. That's a bit confusing. So maybe the suggestion is there is more than one cause? Because there would be a cause for bad states of affairs. We are identifying one of these causes for oppression being blaming the enslaved because of their innate nature. You deserve to be enslaved. You are a black person. And Jesus says, black people, whatever, whatever, whatever. Or you are a poor person and you didn't pull yourselves up from your bootstraps. So you deserve. So this is understanding. This is a cause for a bad state of affairs. Creating a lie that human beings are innately evil and bad. And then the second follow-up lie is, but then we are not. And the third one is, therefore we deserve to oppress you. So a series of lies there. So what's the difference between, is that blaming? Are we blaming this principle? It's not clear yet. Hopefully when it becomes clear, we will become more rational. More mature when the solution, with the solution of maturity is gained. Nevertheless, we are saying, well, it makes no sense to blame others, even though they put on this big show. So that we come to this false conclusion about ourselves. They set it up so that we come to this false conclusion, and it's the only conclusion we would have come to, and it's an insult against the self, and it's going to be the cause of all our problems. But we can't blame them because we also were a part of it. We also made the conclusion ourselves. So maybe the key word is primarily responsible. And it makes no sense to blame ourselves because we didn't even know what we were doing. We were just babies. So in the end, what can we say but that we are responsible? We are responsible. But the conditions for blame are absent. Hasn't made that clear yet what they are. For we played a decisive part in the formation in our beliefs. So playing a part, primarily responsible, is that the difference? So we must take responsibility for the consequences that follow from that belief. What the heck does that mean? Take responsibility, take the blame? What does that mean? I hope he clears up what he means by take the responsibility for the consequences. Feel bad about ourselves for our problems? Let's hope he makes that clear. With the acceptance that we know that we must play a major role in our struggle to reject. Is that it? Is that what he means by take responsibility? Accept that we must play the major role? Accept that it's a struggle? Accept that we have an obligation or a moral responsibility to reject the pathologos and go through that struggle? Not clear yet, but we're getting a lot of puzzles and questions. Some people argue that blaming should be defended. Since it is, okay, let's highlight this. Some people argue blaming should be defended since it is the principal way we have to teach moral lessons. Without these lessons, we will have no other sure way of influencing others. Oh, yuck. This is disgusting already. Influencing others. Manipulating people through this kind of lie and abuse and disgustingness. Yet that is a way some believe morality can be taught, right? God-fearing, it's in the name. God-fearing, fear God. You are bad, you are a sinner, but we need to teach people that they are evil and nasty and disgusting. So otherwise, how will they actually learn how to be good people? Complete disgustingness. But that is a kind of belief or narrative used to justify the infliction of that kind of abuse. But what if we were to say that what is also learned is not to be called, But what if we were to say that what is also learned is not to be caught? Ah, okay, right. So that's one of the problems with extrinsic rewards and punishment. In other words, if you are only being good because you fear the punishment that comes if you're caught, then you're not actually learning to be good, you're learning to not be caught, which often involves putting yourselves in a position where you can play out your disgustingness, or your disgustingness is probably the wrong word, to play out your problem, to act unjustly with impunity, become president, become a parent. So that's not morality at all. Okay? So what is learned is actually not to be caught. Consider, is this not the question that needs answering? Is the cost for this kind of teaching the poor judgment and image people have of themselves? Not only are they not learning anything about what's good, they're not understanding it for themselves, it's not a part of their being, they just realize, oh, if you're in a position of power, you can abuse people. That's what everyone who says blame or making people feel bad about themselves or fear the punishments that follow, that's the only way of manipulating people into being good people. Doesn't work, ever. All they're learning is to become tyrants themselves and not to be caught. But also there's a second cost, which is you have a poor judgment of yourself. You're not actually learning about what you actually really are, which is what you're here for. And not only are you not being able to learn what you are walking away with the opposite. You're walking away with a terrible image of yourself that will prevent you from being happy and doing your job. Finding your destiny. The following questions need to be asked. How can they create the conditions for these false beliefs without being aware of their destructive nature? How could those who have sacrificed so much for those they love turn around and harm those they love? This is a big question. So maybe this comes to the root of the difference between cause and blame. If it's your nature that you are innately an evil critter, then you can say, well, you did it on purpose. Which is, of course, every single war, genocide, abuse is saying, we can't actually understand problems with these people. The devil has them. And the devil doesn't want to understand. He's just bad in nature. So let's just do a genocide. All right. So it's the suggestion that they are willfully and knowingly doing the thing that is bad, which is irrational. No one actually does what they think is bad. Everything we do by definition is good. We talked about that in the Meno. Now, of course, some people want to draw a line and say, yes, but then someone will learn and they will know it's bad and they'll do it anyway. Those are the people we need to hurt or abuse or subjugate or make feel bad about themselves or blame, so on and so on. Try it out. Talk to different people. You'll find that the more rational that people are, well, I think this is what I've found, the more rational people are, the more empathetic they are, the more caring they are, the nicer the person they are. But then as soon as they hit their block, they'll say, here and no further. Yes, understand problems. Yes, don't kill people. But these people, they should know better. Naughty, naughty. They know it's bad, they do it anyway, there must be some flaw in their psyche, and the only way of dealing with them is to or abuse them or whatever. Now, what's interesting is the punishment is usually a manifestation of their own pathologos. They're not actually wanting to help them learn anything. Otherwise, it wouldn't be punishing. It would be understanding. It would be midwifery, logos, philosophy. So what's actually motivating them? They're not getting caught. The message of this kind of teaching of morality is I will spank you, or Jesus will spank you if you are bad, isn't not to do bad things or understand the true nature of the good which you will naturally want to be motivated towards. It's don't get caught. Oh, but when you've vilified someone, you can do whatever you want to them and not get caught because you're using that magic word, one of the most disgusting words in our language, punishment. Punishment. So, at the time of recording, famously there's a genocide happening in Palestine, and these people who have been defined by the Israelis and the West as innately bad, all these terrible, terrible things are happening to these people by not just the genocide itself, but by the soldiers. All sorts, you name it. That's the abuse that the Israeli soldiers are doing to the Palestinian people. Why? Doesn't help anything. Doesn't make them less of a savage. Doesn't make them less motivated by Satan. Why are they doing it? Because they can play out their personal pathologos with impunity and not get caught. Because we're just punishing them as we torture them or rape them or whatever we're doing to them. Okay, it's a disgusting cycle of ignorance and abuse that can be understood and can be solved simply by becoming mature and rational. So that's the understanding of this lie that you have to manipulate people through extrinsic, external punishments and rewards, not through understanding. The lie that people are innately bad, or the lie you can't solve problems. But also we're looking at this idea here that if the parents sacrifice so much and supposedly love their children, why would they act in such a harmful way? Could they too be unaware of the imposition of the belief they themselves believe and yet transmit it? So unawareness. So can you blame them if they wouldn't want to do it if they understood it? They're either just lacking in understanding or awareness. And the two are connected. If you understand something, you're aware of it. And we are learning to become aware of our own pathologos that we play out. So bringing it to awareness through development of understanding. Notice, no beliefs. Not about beliefs. Well, beliefs are the cause of problems, but we can surface these false beliefs that cause us to act harmful even against the ones we love through understanding. We bring it to our awareness, we understand. So is that the difference between blame and what we're doing? Blame versus understanding? We can say that those who created the conditions for the pathologos were, okay, so those who created the conditions for the pathologos were no more aware of its presence and role than its victims. So like we were just talking about the horrible, terrible things that happen as soon as you have labeled someone innately bad. So war, so all of the terrible things happening to the Palestinians now. Are the young Israeli soldiers aware that they're doing it? That they're playing a role within a cycle of this transmission of ignorance and unawareness, causing harmful actions? If they were aware through understanding, would they continue to do it? So do we blame them? So maybe blame has something to do with intentionality and a level of understanding and awareness. Let's keep wondering what the difference is. For it is one thing to recognize that we are acting out a drama, and another thing to know why we are doing it. So that's an important thing. We're not saying that they are completely brain dead. They know that they are mutilating and abusing and genociding and torturing and raping these people and inflicting mass. They know that they are doing it. They're not stupid. The difference is understanding why they are doing it. You say the same thing. The people who vote for, let's say, Trump, or any fascist, any right winger, anyone who actively acts against the best interests of those people. Why would the poor vote for the people who are taking away money from the poor? Doesn't make any sense. Again, politics becomes very, very simple if you use the word money. Who has the money? But look at these culture war distractions. Ooh, they don't let us use the word Christmas. These comedians are too woke. Disney, who cares? Once you put all that nonsense aside and you realize they're just distracting from the question, who has the money? Then if you ask that question, it becomes very simple. Oh, what do the politicians? And I'm not saying it's just the right. Most all politicians in the time of recording act for their own personal profits, because that's capitalism. The problem, the cause is capitalism. But obviously, the right wingers say, well, yeah, we want to have all the money and we want to remove any sort of regulation or taxes so we can have more money. Why would the poor people vote for them? They know they are voting for them, they don't know why. But ignorance is no excuse. Interesting, so excuse is still being used. As it is said, yet if one is ignorant of what one does, so it's not an excuse, yet if one is ignorant of what one does, can they be blamed for doing it? So this is a bit confusing because he is saying we are not ignorant of what we're doing, we're ignorant of why we're doing it. Interesting. So it's really coming down to how well you understand the causes. How well do you understand the principles that are affecting you? Because if you've been brainwashed into think that the planet Earth is a battleground between good and evil, and the purpose of life is to murder all of the non-Zorbo believers, and many religions believe this is very fundamental, because religions, like all systems like that, reflect the principles of the pathologos. Inside our cave good, our family is good, we are the chosen families, but everyone else is innately bad. And you can project this to everything, not just we are the chosen people by God in all religions, but capitalism. We are chosen by God because we're rich. We're innately better. The poor deserve to starve and die, even though we could feed the world many times over very easily without much work at all. Royalty. We are the royal family, these unelected sponges, because we are closer to God. We have the divine right to rule. We are innately better. So inside the cave good, like the caveman times, our tribe is good, everyone else is bad. So the royal family know that they are saying it. Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk know that they are saying that they deserve to have all the money because they're better. The royal family know that they're saying they deserve to have all the money because they're better, and so on and so on. But can they be blamed if they don't know all of the causes, all of the principles of our world that are affecting their soul that caused them to act in such an ignorant and harmful way? Can they be blamed if they are ignorant of these causes? And you're saying it's not an excuse. Doesn't mean you get to do it. But if that's the difference between blame and what we're doing here, understanding, can we say the difference is understanding all of the principles that affect us, all of the causes for our actions? Keeping that question alive. Reflecting on philosophical midwifery talks, we can say we haven't encountered any talks where an authority consciously and deliberately sought to injure those most significant to them through the deliberate transmission of the pathologos. Okay, so this is a universal truth. There's been no midwife talks where this has happened, which means, again, it's still not clear. You got consciously. What does that mean? Deliberately, what does that mean? Sought to injure. Does this mean the consequences? If you seek a different consequence, I'm teaching my kid morality by beating them up. And all you're doing them is to teach them to hate themselves or not be caught while they beat up other people. Is your intended goal the difference? Deliberate? You are fully in charge of all of your thinking, feelings, and actions. Awareness that it's the pathologos? Still not clear. A lot of things being bundled in together. Consciously, let's write it on the board so we can see them all. Because this is a big one. This is a big issue. So we want to really see it clearly. So far, we've got question, blame, versus what we are doing. Yep. That's our question. So in this, he says, no one does what? So the authority this is, because there has to be a position of authority to play out this bollocks. Authority. Play out this insult against the self when we're young. No one consciously, deliberately sought to injure, those most significant through the deliberate transmission of the pathologos. Okay, so what makes... Wait! Oh my goodness, look at the blackboard. So what makes the difference? We're not conscious of it? What does that mean? Don't know. We're not doing it deliberately? What do you mean? You're hitting your kid, you know you're hitting the kid, or you're shouting at your kid, don't reflect on yourself, don't be in self, whatever. It doesn't have to be violence. Of course, we saw that last time. You're still doing it. What does that mean deliberately? So what does that mean? Sought to injure. The intended goal? Does that make the difference? Can you say the same thing of the Crusades? We are torturing these non-Christians because we are seeking to save their soul, because maybe they might go to heaven if they die in torture. Does that mean we don't blame these terrible things of the Crusades? They don't know that it's the pathologos that they're playing out? The ignorance of the fact that they're transmitting the pathologos? Ignorance of the pathologos? What makes the difference? Don't know, not clear. So let's keep that as a question. The underlying theme that runs through each pathologos transmission. Good, we want to know that. Is a kind of rule. We do to others what others had done unto us. What? So there's our cycle of violence. It is not a right or a law or a commandment, but a kind of bond. A bond of the pathologos. And it gives the family appearance of unity. So all of these things. So remember, as we read this, we can play the symmetry game. How does this symmetrically reflect the truth of reality? Well, we don't. So, and a good way to realize there's an opportunity for this game is the word appearance, because appearance has to be an appearance of something, and appearance is a distortion, usually. So, does that mean that we are motivated by an appearance of unity in our problems? But does that mean in philosophy we're seeking true unity? Is that what the soul truly seeks in philosophy? There's a question that we can awaken for us by this game of symmetry. So it's a bond, not a it's not a right or a law or a commandment. So does that mean that there are rights or laws in reality that reflect how we can gain true unity in philosophy? Is that the logos? The principles or laws and rights that we have to follow the logos to gain a true sense of unity? These are questions that we can come up with that can help our reading in philosophy. For the sake of that bonding, so it's the sake of that bonding, some believe they are justified in what they do to others. This is interesting. I come across this sometimes. Why would I help anyone if I wasn't helped? That's... I've got that a lot. I don't understand that. What do you mean? Why should I never got it easy. Why should I make a better world for others? Why should I help someone if I wasn't helped? Hey, some people... if I had to struggle with debt, why should we make a debt-free world? If I had to drink polluted water and breathe polluted air, why should I try and make a better world for other people? That impulse has always confused me. But here we see it's a kind of bond to ignorance. It's a kind of bond to disgustingness, really. A bond to the pathologos, because, hey, do unto others what was done to me. That justification precludes the so that justification... The justification precludes any critique of the legitimacy of that presumed right. Interesting. So they presume they have a right to do unto others what was done unto them. Unable to reflect on what they believe, they are just being themselves. Hey, I'm just being myself. Know me, know my ways. That's an expression in England that terrible people use to justify their terrible actions. Hey, know me, know my ways. That I'm just being myself when I'm racist. Shouldn't you just love me unconditionally when I'm a racist? I'm just being myself. No, you're not. You are a slave to a parasitic false belief that you are unable to reflect on because of your ignorance. Therefore, you are unconsciously somehow a slave to someone else or something else, causing you to act in a way that injures people and pass on a tradition of ignorance and harm. So you're not really being yourself. You don't know yourself. You're a slave to some false beliefs. But I have a right to do it, right? They defend their right to remain ignorant of what motivates them. That's also another thing. When I was studying music, one of the first things we learned was how to wrap music cables, so they don't get damaged and so they can be easily unfold. It's just a simple way of not rolling it up all the same way, one way, and then you flip it around and back and forth. It's just this little technique that's used in the music industry. And there was this one older gentleman in the group who didn't pick it up straight away. And so I went over to help him, say, oh, okay, here's a little trick. If you twist it, it makes it easier. And he goes, no. What do you mean, no? And he said, something that stuck with me. I have a right to do it the wrong way. And I said, well, aren't you enrolled in this course to learn? Anyway, that man left the course about a month later. I suspect because that same problem manifested in an inability to learn anything in music. But yeah, it really stuck with me. I have a right to remain ignorant. What the hell does that mean? Because we're also saying, hey, when we have this ignorance, which seems to preclude us from blame, because I'm ignorant of the forces upon me, specifically the pathologos, I'm not consciously doing it. I'm not deliberately sorting to do harm. He said ignorance is no excuse. But what's going on here? This is a bit confusing for me. Ignorance is no excuse, but hey, people defend their right to remain ignorant while defending their right to do those ignorant things. Another religion. Okay, not your religion, viewer, but all of the other religions which, because of your religion, you know are objectively bad. They are going to hell. They don't have the right God. So you can look at all of their religions and say, that's child abuse. Or if you're non-religious, you'll say that to all religions. Or if you're rational, you'll say it to all religions because they are in nature of belief. And we're not interested in belief because beliefs have nothing to do with truth. We want understanding. That's what helps. But if you have a belief in religion, then everyone else's beliefs, use that as the example. Look at them. They'll say, I have a right to act harmfully and teach my child that if they watch Harry Potter, they will be tortured for eternity. That's child abuse. That's psychological damage. And lying is going to prevent them from doing what they're here to do. But they will say, I've got a right to do this. And then you'll say, well, hang on a second. No, you should reflect on what you're doing and realize that's harmful. No, I have a right to remain ignorant with my false beliefs. Now, it's interesting because we don't allow this always. Famously, Christian scientists who don't give, or I think some other crazy religions, that don't give medicine to sick children are put in prison for child abuse. You can't say, well, I have a right to my ignorance. No, not for that. The other stuff somehow, for some reason, we let you do, but not that one, not denying medicine to children, because it's your belief that Jesus will save you through prayer. So this is a curious dynamic. They are free from blame if they're ignorant, and yet they defend their right to the ignorance, and they use their ignorance to defend their right to do to others the same bullshit that was done to them, because it gives me an appearance of being bonded within a group. Now, it's Christmas time at the time of recording, so you might recognize when families get together, there can be this kind of disgustingness. As a mark of bonding, families might share their ignorance. So for Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever, family comes together. All of a sudden, the worst nature of the people come out when they all yell at the dog, or they all collectively gossip about some person, or they all collectively shoot down a family member, or victimize someone. To create but what we're doing is understand why they do it. Why do they act so terribly? A sense of a bond. Now, if for your particular family you won't recognize it as bad, you'll think it's love. It's the bond of our family that we have a right to. And we have a right not to reflect on why we're doing it. Lots of puzzles here. Let's keep reading. Wait. The child is not... What? How long is this section? It's pretty long. But it's worth reflecting in this level. It's worth reading in this way where we can find puzzles that reflect our world and our experience. The child is not able to grasp the long-range consequences of submitting to the pathologos. Child is not able to grasp the long-range consequences of buying into this game. Submitting, they sacrifice something. And we've been talking about the difference between self-governance, self-rulership, self-mastery, and slavery. Interesting, all of these systems of oppression and... Whoa! Okay, I'm back. Biggest cockroach I've ever seen just jumped out from behind my computer screen. Like the pathologos, the biggest cockroach of them all. People have blah 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 blah. They're motivated by a bond. They have a rule or a right to do to others what was done to them. And the right to remain ignorant. So what we've got over here is, you could say this is what they're not doing. They're not conscious. They're not deliberate. They're not seeking to injure. They're not aware that they're deliberately transferring the pathologos. So they're not aware of the principles governing human souls. But what are they doing? They are motivated by appearance of unity. Motivated by appearance. Two B's. Hence. of unity. That's and a family bond. Kind of bond. Right. To do to others what was done to us unto us. To use the text accurately. Right to remain ignorant. Right to remain ignorant. So this is what they are doing, so we can fit this into a dialectic. This is what they're not doing, this is what they are doing. Motivated by appearance of unity, it's a kind of bond that motivates them. Kind of family bond. Unable to reflect upon what they believe. Oh, they're saying they are just being themselves. And so we can put over in this category unable to reflect, almost as though reflection is a kind of skill and practice that you have to learn, which is what we're doing here.
Wow.
Unable to reflect on what they believe. Okay, so we're adding more to the understanding of what's going on so we can distinguish this understanding and what we're doing from blame. The interesting chap in that music. I have a right to do it the wrong way. What does that mean? Sorry about that. So, the child is not able to grasp the long-range consequences of submitting to the pathologos. Notice there is a submission. We have to sacrifice ourselves. So a lot of the ideas of blame are around vilifying the self. The heart speaks with a more... Now, are we blaming the pathologos? Still wondering about the difference. The heart speaks with a more urgent voice than the demands of reason. Interesting. This is something that heart speaks with a more urgent voice than the demands of reason. Now, this is another repeating theme in the text. Why is the pathologos stronger than the logos? Why do even people who have experiences of the realm of being, through whatever ways, meditation and things, or actual gurus, why do they still have their problems? Why do we fall? Why do we have counterattacks as we learn? In other words, why is the principles, why is humanity, we've had the words of Socrates for 2,500 years. Why are we ignoring them? Why are we still fighting Nazis? In other words, What makes the Pathologos stronger in this world than the Logos? And one of the repeating themes is the primal urge to imitation. Came up earlier in the text. The urge to imitate our loved ones. Somehow being more primary or primal and therefore more forceful was incomplete. But here we have, and what was interesting is when we talked about this primal or primary or evolved urge to imitate our Pathologos models, it was curious to me that it wasn't a complete comparison. He didn't compare it to something else. The urge to imitation is stronger than what? Now it's interesting, finally we've got the other side of that comparison. The urge, or the heart, speaks with a more urgent voice than the demands of reason. So we've got an urge to imitation that makes the Pathologos stronger than the demands of reason. There is a demanding force demanding us to solve the puzzle of our problems, remove the Pathologos. We saw that in the last episode. The mind is communicating our problems to give us puzzle pieces. It's demanding we give up our Pathologos through understanding. It's demanding we don't just give it up. We master a skill and an art first, or in the process of removing it. So we're here to learn something. It's demanding we do it, and it won't let us just get by with our problems. It's demanding you understand. It's demanding you master the art of understanding, and it's demanding you give up that insult to the self. Also, there's something within our soul demanding us to know ourselves, get better, learn, improve, become curious. So there is a demand of reason in the Logos, but there is also a more urgent, tying into the idea of an urge, a primal urge, a more urgent voice that he's identifying with the heart. So, curious, that theme is repeating. We're going to carry that with us in our minds as we go. Actually, let's put it on the board. Why is the Pathologos stronger, at least in this world, at least in at least in this realm, than the Logos in truth. So that's the question. We've seen the idea of an urge, a primal urge to imitate, and here we're seeing the heart speaks with a more urgent voice. Heart of the child speaks with a more urgent voice than The demands of reason. That's interesting. Gotta understand this. Clearly, what we see again and again in our talks is that our efforts here's a big one. Our efforts to save the image of our loved ones. This is a big one. So, at the beginning of today's podcast, we talked about how prevalent anger is and how anger can come up in conversations, especially if we're doing well. Many times I've been talking with someone and the person hasn't even been in the conversation. Sometimes they don't even know who we are. The fact that we're sharing in the logos somehow motivates these goddamn strangers to feel compelled that they have a right to act in such a primal, bestial way, to start yelling and being disgusting and as disgusting and abusive as they can to sabotage the logos. They are pissed. They're angry at the logos. Nothing to do with them. It's always been a puzzle to me. So we've talked about this. But also in conversations. As you are talking with your friends and following the logos, there'll come a point where they will start to sabotage the conversation. They'll filibuster, or they'll start making speeches, or they'll go off on tangents, or they'll try and reframe it in an argument they're used to, usually a family argument. Oh, it sounds like you're saying this. Let's frame it this way so I can fight you the same way I fight with my parents, or the same way we fight with other families. Very, very common. We talked about this. The anger will kick in at a certain point to defend the pathologos, defend their own illness from the logos. We've talked about Trump voters, the poor people who vote for the person taking the money away from the poor people. Once you engage with them, it's family, it's Christmas time at the time of recording, the Republican uncle, the famous meme or the archetype of that, the right-wing uncle, the right-wing parents or whatever that you don't want to go home and visit. Why? Because as you progress along a reasoned, mature conversation following the logos, there will be a point where they get pissed. Anger, that's the theme of this section. Anger comes up to defend themselves from what actually would benefit them. The anger causes us to act against our own interests in these cases. It's a theme. The anger will come up in the logos to stop the logos. Now, you might want to know, well, why? One of the key reasons is, and you might even recognize this at those times in the conversation, is to defend their image of the loved ones. This pathologos doesn't apply. My mother was a saint. My dad was the best dad. He did his best. When it starts to come to light that the cause of their problems, the pathologos, was as a result of a whole bunch of ignorance and harmful behavior, this right to do unto others the harm that was done unto them, the right to remain ignorant, the refusal to reflect and understand, the big charade put on, the lying, that their beloved parents done to them, that's when people can get really pissed. It's true, but as we are seeing, the heart speaks with a more urgent voice than the demands of reason. Again, to me, it's always confused me, like, just why don't you understand? Surely the more you understand something, the less, and if it turns out to be less than beautiful, you will love it less. So what are you protecting? A love you don't have? Or you won't have when you have the truth? Who cares? That's That's not the same as a lack of empathy or compassion or understanding. In fact, you might say this kind of understanding is better love than blind ignorance and allowing the people we care about to be harmful and abusive and sick and blocked and remain stuck in a tradition of sickness. That doesn't sound like love. Oh no, but that's what I think love is. So it's a sick idea of love that we've already talked about is motivating the pathologos. A sick idea of love which involves saving an image of our loved ones, not actually saving our loved ones. Saving an image. That's interesting. It comes up. Notice it. Talk with your friends or talk with people. See what happens when you can see the light turning on in their eyes. Oh, hang on a second. That means my beloved mother wasn't a beloved saint. Uh-oh. Time to turn on the anger. All right. So, our efforts to save the image of our loved ones brings us to, this is the consequence of that irrational, immature, actually unloving game of saving our loved ones is we blame ourselves. No, it was right that they did this to me because I suck in some way. Or the world sucks, other people sucks. I need to be treated this way because those damn Palestinians or those damn Protestants or those damn Muslims, you pick one. Saving that image may culminate in a denial that such beliefs could never be the cause of our problems. So it's interesting. The blaming, denying, and suffering are so immediate and intense that they blind us from seeing, that they distort the recollection of our past. Interesting. So blaming, he seems to be, he's connecting blaming, the denying, the I have a right to ignorance, and suffering in the same family here. Interesting. So not only is blaming apparently irrational, but also it blinds us. Again, not sure yet what the difference between what we're doing is and blame is, because we are understanding causes. Is that blame? What's the difference? Equally, when we keep alive the anguish, we have suffered by endlessly reflecting on that anguish, we maintain the power of the pathologos. Thus, the blaming functions as a way of focusing our concern on the suffering rather than on what was learned. Blaming is a diversion. It is a psychic maneuver that draws us away from the urgency to understand. Understand. Let's go yellow. No, let's go yellow. The urgency to understand what? The scope. Understand what? The function. Understand what? The implication of what lies behind those beliefs. Interesting. So we're getting closer to the difference. So far we've got the idea that blame is can involve a misdiagnosis of the cause being the innate badness of a person. The cause of your poverty is you are innately a lazy person. The cause of your slavery is you are innately a black person who is a monkey. The cause of your having to be genocided is you are innately a savage. You were chosen by the wrong God, and so on and so on. The cause for a police, the current retributive justice system that doesn't benefit anybody other than maintaining the property for the rich is you are innately all criminals. the justification for capitalism, the cause is for the need for capitalism apparently is you're all selfish, and so you need a selfishness, and so on and so on. So that's one aspect of blame, to misdiagnose the cause as an innate badness as of the self. But there's another aspect of blame which is seems to be not recognizing that to be primarily the cause. You have to be doing it deliberately. You have to be aware of what you're doing. You have to be aware of everything, including the principles of the pathologos. Then it seems like a really friggin' tall bar to have. You can't blame anyone unless they are all-knowing. That doesn't make sense to me. But he says it doesn't make sense to blame someone, not only because they are ignorant of what they're doing, and it wasn't actually their intended consequence, they're ignorant of their consequence, but also you played a role. Even though they did all this stuff to you to set it up, you made the conclusion. So maybe the idea of blame is a singular cause, just like to blame in a way that causes people to what's the expression here? One of the problems for this kind of blame is experiencing a state of worthlessness. Primarily responsible. So I think maybe the word here is primarily responsible. Blame doesn't make sense because it's primary responsibility. In other words, a primary cause. So yes, they set it up, but you also played a role in that you came to that wordless conclusion. But you can't blame you because you didn't know you were doing it. So you're not the primary cause. In other words, you couldn't have acted any other way. Perhaps. He also says that blame is a kind of psychic maneuver that draws us away from understanding. So maybe that's the difference from blame. Because that's what blame is. Blame is a prevention of understanding the actual causes. Also, he mentions sometimes blame is used to justify abuse and punishment as a way of teaching morality, but actually you're teaching them two things. Number one, they suck, which is terrible, but also number two, they're not actually learning any morality, they're learning not to get caught. Don't punch the cat when dad is in the room is what they're really learning. So, again, blame can be used to justify abuse through the word punishment, which is really ultimately a way of justifying doing unto others what was done to you. In other words, playing out the pathologos. That's what punishment is all about. But also he says blaming and right, so blaming also makes you recall the past events and the suffering, which makes it more intense and immediate. So blaming, so it sounds like, so we've got, this is a real puzzle. Blaming doesn't understand all the causes, number one. Blaming can work in a negative way to justify abuse and under the guise of punishment. And also has a consequences of not helping people understand morality. Blame can also distract us from understanding all of the causes, and so doesn't resolve the pain, and therefore makes the suffering more immediate and intense, which can make reflection more difficult. So it sounds like blame is being pointed out as being wrong because it's irrational in that it doesn't adequately understand all of the causes, and the person you're blaming themselves is ignorant of the causes. So it's a kind of irrationality, but also blame is a problem because it does harm. Why? Because if we are passing on this morality of blame, we are harming the souls of other people, we're harming the development of other people, we're keeping this tradition of violence alive, so that kind of harm. But also it's a harm to ourselves as well. It's a harm to ourselves because it's bringing up the pain and the suffering we're having, which makes it more difficult to find the cause, makes it more difficult to recollect. It might make us want to never recollect, because why would we just keep repeating the suffering? But it also does harm because it's a distraction from actually understanding the causes. So what are we understanding? The scope of our pathologos, the function of the pathologos, the implication of what lies behind them. So we're not only understanding the actual causes. Again, the cause isn't your evil. The cause wasn't that our parents were all knowing. They were also stupid and ignorant and part of this tradition. Or is that okay to say? It's okay to say for all the other parents on your street. So if you're saying, no, I can't call my parents stupid and ignorant, but everyone else on the street, then that's no integrity. You're not being mature. So don't fall into that trap. Our fascist is the good fascist. Our Hitler's the good Hitler. Our religion's the good religion. Our parents the good parent. Don't fall into that irrationality and immaturity. So, not only blame doesn't adequately address the causes, so it's blame repeats the suffering, distracts us from understanding causes, and perpetuates the cycle, so it does harm. That's the harm. But the second part of it is, there's two parts. Does harm and irrational. The irrationality seems to be actually understanding all the causes, which includes understanding the causes within their parent. They were not intending this. They were ignorant. Their causes. Ignorance is a cause. Them defending their right to ignorance is a cause. Them having that bond, we do unto others what was done unto us, that sick family bond, that's a cause. But also at the end he's saying, not only do we have to understand the causes, there is an urgency to understand the consequences. What's the scope of the pathologos? How does it affect your life? How does it function in your life? How will it function in your future? What are the implications? Again, present and future. So we can go to the causes in the past and the present and and as well as the consequences in the present and future. So we're getting close to an understanding of blame versus what we're doing here. So let's continue over here. So what are we doing? We've got the question, difference between blame and what we are doing, say midwifery, and what are we doing? Let's put that as a question. So difference between blame and whatever we're doing. So far we're seeing that blame does harm, we've seen it vilifies self, therefore creates sense of inadequacy. Well, let's get it from the text here. Worthlessness, otherwise as intimidation, intimidation, worthlessness of self, teaches a poor judgment, teaches poor judgment, and image of themselves, teaches morality is actually not getting caught, resurfaces suffering, so it makes more intense and immediate our suffering, which in turn makes it in turn more difficult to reflect and understand. So it does harm. Also, blame is irrational. Because doesn't properly understand all the causes which need to be understood to end the suffering, problems, and cycle or tradition in brackets, do unto others what was done unto you, but also let's use a different color. Also, understand the consequences. Doesn't allow for understanding the cause and consequences. Which also involves, to use the text, the scope, function, implication. Scope, function, and implication. You could say, well, the causes are to do with the past, the consequences are to do with the present and our future. But you could also say, well, this has an implication on your memory of the past. It has an implication of how your past played out. Why you didn't talk to that girl you wanted to talk to. Why you didn't apply for that job you wanted to apply for. Why your birthday sucked. That's also part of the scope and the function. So we're seeing this is the functioning of blame. Does harm, vilifies the self, does intimidation, creates a sense of worthlessness in self, teaches poor judgment and image of people's selves, teaches morality is actually just not getting caught, which is pretty prevalent, makes a more intense and immediate our suffering, which makes it more difficult to reflect and understand. So that's how blame does harm, but also blame is bad because it's wrong, it's irrational. It doesn't properly understand all the causes which we need to understand to end the suffering, to end our problems, to end the cycles of violence, the cycles of this tradition, the cycles of why we still fight Nazis within our soul, within our species. Why are we still fighting Nazis? Why are we still irrational? Why are we still harming each other? Well, blame is one of the reasons, because it's not properly understanding the causes, and we need to understand all of them. So the reason why we're going through this book is to understand all of the causes. Why do we have our problems? What was our origin scene like? What were the necessary conditions? What were the necessary causes? The milieu, the act, the lying, the lack of words. All of that. We need to understand all the causes, and blame doesn't do it. It's easy and dismissal, which is why it's sold to people. Oh, you know what your cause of problems, says those grifters? Immigrants, trans people, gay people, people different color than you, women's. Bollocks, bollocks, bollocks. Harmful and irrational. Because actual rational politics would be addressing the causes of wealth inequality, addressing the causes of capitalism, addressing the causes of climate change, genocide. That's simply the same rationality we demand of medicine, of flying a plane. Hey, if you're saying, well, the reason the plane is falling out of the sky is immigrants. No, you can't lie about a plane, because we will immediately crash. We need to be rational and assign the same standard of simple rationality, which is addressing the causes properly, to the two areas that we don't allow it to happen, which is religion and politics. By the way, the simple use of rationality to address the causes of the soul and reality is philosophy. That's true spirituality. And the use of rationality to address the causes is midwifery. So our question, what are we doing that's different from blame? Midwifery, which is what? Actually addressing and understanding all of the causes of our problems. This is what we need to demand of politics, as we would demand this of spirituality. But we're saying the heart speaks louder than the demands of reason. So we also have to understand why, if we demand true philosophy and spirituality, which is simply the demand of reason that we all have, if you can make this argument to anyone, I don't care if they're Buddhist, Muslim, Jehovah's Witness, or they believe in Zorbo, you can make the argument that just as we demand a rationality and understanding in medicine and architecture and everything else, we can be unified in actual understanding of actual benefit with true philosophy, which is true spirituality. Everyone can follow that. Everyone would agree, simply because it's rational and human souls demand rationality. However, if you make that argument, even though we will all ultimately agree with it and should agree with it and will agree with it, this will come up too. It's not a matter of simply programming in the truth like a computer. We have human problems. We are also here to address this, not just this. We're here to do both. As we demand rationality and spirituality of demanding true philosophy and not people exploiting other people in many, many different ways, exploiting wealth, exploiting resources, doing genocides in the name of religion, right? People will say, no, my heart wants it. But I like a little bit of genocide so long as it's the other team. Oh, I like a little bit of my pastor having golden planes because, my heart wants it. I feel it's good. The heart speaks louder than the demands of reason. Yes, that's the human condition. That's the human problems. But in the same way, we demand reason of understanding the nature of soul, self, and reality. We can demand reason of the understanding of human problems. Oh, I want a little bit of genocide. Well, if that's your principle, we should kill you because that's objectively bad. No. Don't even kill the people who have in their hearts a love of genocide. Doesn't matter, doesn't work that way. Human problems, midwifery, the rational approach to human problems is understanding why. What are the causes? Because those same causes applied to any human being will get them to love genocide. Hey, there's a reason why we're still fighting Nazis. Because the causes haven't been understood. It's not a matter of killing Nazis. You can't do that. That's why terrorism is a stupid idea. You can't just kill the idea of terrorism. It's dumb. And the politicians know that. That's why they use it as a undefeatable perpetual boogeyman to justify oppression. What we need is just as we demand reason, the demands of reason for nature of understanding the nature of soul and reality, the problems, which include the counterattacks to this. But I love my religion. I love my mummy and daddy who said that Jesus hates me because I'm a woman, or whatever they said. Yes, that is false and a problem, but it's true that you love it. We need to learn an understanding of what are the causes that create that, and how do we remove it. How do we remove the objectively false and harmful false beliefs that cause people to suffer and harm themselves and others? That's just rationality. So blame gets in the way of that demand of reason. And our question is, what are we doing? Well, demanding reason. What's the demand of reason applied to spirituality? True philosophy. Reading the Balboa version of Socrates. What's the demands of reason applied to human problems? Midwifery. So there's a possible answer to the question we've been carrying all podcast. Difference between blame and what? The demand of reason applied to human problems, which is philosophical midwifery. So last time we talked about how, the two most important things, the demand of reason applied to spirituality, the nature of meaning of life, and the demand of reason applied to human problems, what we call spirituality or religion and politics, these are the ones you're not allowed to talk about on the dinner table at Thanksgiving or Christmas. Why? Because as you demand reason, there is the human problem. The heart speaks louder than the demands of reason. So hey, you're having a lovely conversation with your racist uncle or with your closed-minded parents or boomers or whoever, and then there'll come a point where the human problems kick in and says, no, I don't like this. People are lazy, or people deserve to be homeless, or people deserve to be in constant stress for not having a home or food. Why? I don't know, I feel that way. That's a human problem. By the way, if we're demanding reason, we also have to demand reason for our reflection on our problems. So that's an opportunity to reflect on why you would want to do harm to other people in the service of capitalism or whatever it is that's motivating your racist parents or uncles or right wing, let's say. They don't have to be racist to demand capitalism. So it's important that we do speak about these topics. What we need to learn is the skill of how to do it. That's what we talked about today. What are we doing? We're learning a skill. So people who are in their problems are demanding a right to remain ignorant of reason, reflection, and how to understand causes. What we are doing is learning a skill of reflection, so that we can have these conversations properly and not all be polite when the block comes up, as though the block should be ruling the conversation. No. Racist uncle is filibustering. He doesn't get to be in charge. That's a problem. The Logos is in charge. Oh no, but it's impolite to disagree with people. No. Impolite doesn't get to be in charge because impolite means no Logos. Oh no, but respecting everyone's beliefs, everyone has a right to their ignorance. No. Literally, that's one of the causes of problems. To demand a right to ignorance. Why? Because there is a consequence to ignorance. And that's what we need to understand. So, again, the skill of conversation means just who is leading, really? The false beliefs that you shouldn't talk? No. That's the Pathologos origin scene as well. We demand there's no talking in the origin scene. No, screw that. Always talk. The Logos leads. Logos leads always. So, blame functions in a similar way to prevent the Logos, which is the reflection. So, not only does it do harm, it prevents actually understanding the causes, which is the skill of reflection that we're learning. It's a skill, it's an art, because it actually does benefit and not harm. And what we're seeing is we have to understand the causes so we can remove the perpetual fight against Nazis, remove perpetual suffering, remove the tradition of suffering, but also what we read was also understand the consequences, understand the scope of our false beliefs, understand how it functions, understand the implications. So the causes, you could say the causes in our past and the consequences in the present and future, but really there are causes playing out in the present too, and there are consequences playing out in the past. So what is blame? Harmful and irrational. Harmful for those reasons we went through, and irrational because it doesn't properly allow for the understanding of causes and consequences, both of which is needed for understanding. And that's what we're doing differently. So you could say blame is juvenile. It's an irrational and childish way of understanding the cause. It's just this one person. No, there are all these causes that they are playing out, including their ignorance, including their refusal to reflect, including the family bond, but principles of the human species that we are here to understand. The Pathologos is universal. You got to understand that too. You can't just kill people who disagree with you. You're not understanding the principles of being human, which is what we're here for. So blame is stupid, juvenile, childish. It's like a baby answer. How does the car work? Oh, cars go, petrol? No, that's a stupid answer. You might tell a baby that. Cars drink petrol, make car go. But that's such a stupid understanding of how a car works. Same thing for how do problems work. Oh, they're just the devil. Oh, they're just Satan. Oh, they're just savages. Oh, they're just not chosen by God. Oh, they're just from a different family. Oh, they're just immigrants. Oh, they're just trans people. That's stupid. That's baby talk to assign simply one cause. What we're doing is understanding how to reflect on causes and consequences. But that also includes understanding the causes and consequences of human beings. Universal principles. That means we are discovering the Logos. So what are we learning? The skill in reflection, which is nothing other than the skill of the Logos. But it's not just a skill. It removes harm and allows us to free ourselves from problems, so it allows for benefit. It's a skill that has to be learned. It's a mature, rational skill that's objective, true, provable, demonstratable, but also it does good and benefit, meaning it's not just a skill, it's an art. So what are we doing? The art of the Logos. What's the baby opposite of that? Blame. What's needed in our world? Mastering the art of the Logos. What's needed for our souls? Mastering the art. We want to stop fighting Nazis. What's the alternative? Mastering the art of the Logos. Recognizing this, hey, blame is one of the causes for problems. It prevents reason. It keeps surfacing our problems, our suffering, makes it harder to reflect. So the skill of reflecting on both causes and consequences in a mature, rational way that benefits making it an art. The art of the Logos. The art of reflection. That's what we're here for. That's what we're doing. And that's what we're having fun with on this channel. I hope you enjoyed the podcast today. I hope you had fun. I hope you enjoyed the process of being puzzled and then coming to a kind of conclusion at the end. And once again, share your experiences, try it out, test it out, see how it goes. What did you notice about anger when it comes up talking with your friends? What do you see about blame? What's it like for you replacing blame with this art of the Logos reflection on the true understanding of causes and consequences? What's it like bringing it up on the Thanksgiving table? Thanks again for joining me. Of course, you can join the Discord if you want notification when we go live. There should be a link below. You can follow on Twitch and YouTube. Thanks once again for joining me, and I hope to see you next time. Bye. Bye.